Over the years, Toyota has often been criticized as not being the most up-to-date when it comes to some of the features and technologies in their car. And specifically, Toyota 4Runner has been one of those that probably gets the most criticism for the least amount of changes. In fact, the current 2023 and 2024 4Runners have basically been in production now for a little over like 10 years. And even the generation before that shared pretty much the same mechanical bits, a lot of the same interior components, just differences on the body panels and some of the, I guess, technology, things like that. But now we're moving into a world where the 4Runner somehow has become maybe the stick in the mud, but it's the only one, the only SUV that you can get. Really, it's the only naturally aspirated car you can get from Toyota at this point, with the exception of the Camry V6 that still exists. But everything else has gone turbocharged, and that's pretty much the same for most brands. Turbo 4 cylinders, turbo 6 cylinders, even the Sequoia now and the Tundra have gone for a turbo 4 cylinder. So we're in kind of an interesting point. 2024 4Runners, this is probably going to be the last year that we're going to see a naturally aspirated 4-liter, 270 horsepower V6. And while for years that's been a criticizing factor for the 4Runners, I think now as we move into the rest of 24 and hear more updates on the 25s coming out, I think you're going to find a lot of people are going to miss the technology, or maybe even lack thereof, in the current generation 4Runners. So today I've got a special 2024 4Runner TRD Off-Road Premium in the new underground color, which is new for 24s. And today I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about this car and maybe kind of memorialize what's been so successful about these 4Runners. And we'll see what happens over the next few months when Toyota releases more information on them. So with that being said, as always, this is Brian with Fred Anderson Toyota here in Asheville. Let's get started. All right, so again, this is a 2024 4Runner TRD Off-Road Premium. This one is also equipped with the Southeast Toyota XP or Predator package, which does include all-terrain tires, the black TRD wheels, the Predator metal running boards there, and of course this is in the new color Underground. This is a fantastic color. It's the replacement for the matte gray that Toyota's had for a long time in a lot of their vehicles. But this is a great color. It kind of falls in line with some of those other kind of more taupe or flat colors, kind of like Lunar Rock has been, and Cavalry Blue, where it does not really have any flake in the paint. It's pretty much just a flat color. I think Ford has a color that's just like this. I think it was called Heavy Metal. I think the Bronco had a version of this that had that color on it. I mean, there's a lot of different names for this type of color, but if you ask me, I think it looks great. I think there's going to be plenty of people that are going to miss having a little bit of that metal flake that shows up in the dark gray typically, but I think for a lot of people, this is going to be an exciting new color. Now, I know this is available on the TRD Off-Road and the Sport. I did not look to see if it's available on the SR5s or the Limiteds. I'm not sure that it is, but I'll have to do some research, you know, for somebody that's curious about that specifically. But fantastic. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the interior on this one. So again, this one is an off-road premium, and really the big difference on the off-road premium is the fact that you now get the leather seats, or Softex as Toyota calls it. You can see on the TRD models, they do have the TRD stitching, as well as the red stitching here on the seats, as well as the center console. You also do get heated seats. You can see the dials here. And then on the other side of the steering wheel on the dashboard, there is a heated steering wheel, which is a nice upgrade as well. Typical setup here, they've had pretty much this screen since 2020, when they finally updated the technology to allow for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This car does have Toyota's built-in or dynamic navigation system. Works pretty good, but it's about as good as any navigation system that you can imagine from the last 10 years. I think most people are just going to plug in their devices and use the Apple CarPlay settings. No wireless, no options for wireless on this. This is a bit of an older piece of technology, but honestly, it works really well. Typical touchscreen setup. If you've been in a Toyota before, this is a very easy system to use and operate. They've actually had versions of this software now for probably 10 years. They just kind of refined the actual technology experience. With this being a TRD off-road, we can see here we've got the A-track, the crawl control, the drive mode selector. Everything is available there for your off-road mood. That was probably my favorite button there, which is the rear locking differential, which is going to get you out of a lot of hairy situations. Crawl control is basically your off-road cruise control, if you will, and then you do have these different terrain modes for, you know, rock, sand, dirt, things like that. You do have stuff like the programmable garage door openers, as well as on the premiums you do have the power sunroof, which is typical here. But if you really look around, minus the fact that this is a little bit of a more higher end 4Runner, this is pretty much the same way 4Runners have looked now for, honestly, probably 15 years now. They've had basically the same setup here. We've got nice, huge, clicky knobs here for your air conditioning. At least on the off-road model, there is no auto climate control. That's really only available on the limiteds. There's no ventilated seats here. Specific to the off-roads and the pros, you do actually have a manual selector for four-wheel drive, which is huge because it's a lot more reliable in the long run than the switch or power activated ones. But the placement and the shifter here has pretty much been the same in 4Runners for a long time. The shift pattern, the shifter itself, the center console, all of this has pretty much been the same. You do, of course, have push button start now, which honestly took them all the way up until about 2020 to put that in most of their cars. Before that, it was really just the limiteds. But if you really look around here, this has been pretty much the same interior now for a long time. And it even goes a little further in the back seats here. This seating setup is, again, identical to how 4Runners have always been. I have a 1995 4Runner, and when is the last time, outside of us Toyota people, have you seen a tumble folding second row seat? This is exactly how it works in my 95, and here we are in 2023, and Toyota says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You can see here, I don't know if I got to move that seat up a little bit to make it happen, but this will fold pretty much flat once I actually allow for the room for it to happen. Actually, I'll go ahead and do that. Go ahead and just move this up. Power seats on the driver's side here, always nice. Considering Toyota rarely gives you a power seat on the passenger seat, unfortunately. Fold that headrest down. So you can see here, now this 4Runner, and I'll show you from the rear, does have the slide out cargo tray. And with that, you do get a nearly perfectly flat load floor here, which comes in handy for a lot of different reasons. But this style of seating configuration is definitely like an old school, you know, SUV type thing. This is how they all were back in the day. And for Toyota, I think it still works fine. If we show you the back here, no power tailgate. There's no 4Runner ever available with a power tailgate, even on the limited model. No power close, no power open, just old school manual operation. And looking at this from the rear here, of course, you can see we do have the slide out cargo tray. Now, there's a lot of reasons why I think this cargo tray exists. I can't think of one clear advantage on why you would want it, with the exception of it does work out great if you'd like to tailgate or camp. Imagine if you've got like a little campsite stove, or if you're tailgating, you want to throw out the burgers and stuff like that, you could totally just lay this out right here like a table would and just serve off that. You can see that this supports a decent amount of weight. So if you're wanting to sit on this, probably two people could sit on that pretty comfortably. There's these somewhat cup holders, you know, you could set stuff down there, maybe kind of hang out on the beach and just kind of sit under the shade or something like that. I think it's also handy if you wanted to, like, maybe you've got mulch or bags of gravel or dog food or something, and you want to slide this out and you want to pick it up from the cart, set it in here, and then you can just easily push this back in, so you're not having to reach over this huge, you know, gap between me and the inside. And I'm pretty tall, so it's fairly easy for me to do that. But I think there's a couple reasons why this might be handy. But I think what most people will enjoy is if you do get this tray, you can see you do have that flat floor, which is nice. If you don't have that, typically it gets close to being flat. There's a little bit of a hump with that back seat, but it is kind of nice for loading things, or if you're the type of person that can fit in here for car camping, that's a nice advantage to have as well. TRD models and others have had plugs back here for a long time. You can see both a 120 volt, yeah, and a 12 volt style plug, so you can run a laptop or DVD player, possibly even like a Keurig, you know, something like that that'll fit the wattage at least. or like a cell phone or charger or whatever you want to have back here. For the cars that do have the third row seating, this little pocket on both sides becomes cup holders, but really it's a ton of room back here, and that's been a 4Runner staple. It's kind of the main advantage of having such a boxy SUV like this, is especially for the ones that don't have the third row, there's a ton of room for storage in here. It's great for people that want to go off-roading, camping, backpacking, mountain biking. You can throw as much gear in here as you can absolutely imagine, fill it to the roof, and if you run out of room, 4Runner party trick has always been you can roll their back window down. And that's actually one of those things that they're saying might disappear on the 2025 models. They might have a fixed piece of glass. Now, when I say they, that's not Toyota, because Toyota doesn't say anything to anybody. That's the internet that's saying that. There's a rumor mill that says that they might not have a fixed glass anymore. So I hope that doesn't happen. But you can see again back here, pretty average legroom, honestly. It's comfortable enough. You do get a little bit of like a stadium seating, if you will, because if you see this seat, so it's a little bit taller than the back. So as I hop in here, as I always like to do, again, I am 6'3". Of course, you can see with my hat on. There is a bit of a hump in the roof right here, which is in between where I'm sitting and the sunroof. And for me, this does not get in the way. It actually gives me about, well, if I sit up perfectly straight, about an inch or two of headroom. But if I just sit kind of normal and slouch, I've got about 2 to 3 inches of headroom between me and the roof, and that's with a hat on. So I think it's more than enough headroom. Legroom is average back here. I've got that front seat back pretty far. I don't even think I'd need to have it that far back for me to drive, but for dramatic effect, I did move it back a little further. And you can see it's a little tight back here. If I move this seat back up, it's pretty easy there. You can kind of see, like with this seat a little bit further up than this one is, there's definitely enough legroom back here. I'm not gonna pretend like it's super luxurious back here for space, but I think for most people, it's pretty comfortable. You could definitely, especially if you move that seat up a little bit, you could definitely fit a rear-facing car seat in here without too much effort. You know, if you're looking for the most room when it comes to passenger space, then honestly, you'll want to look at the Highlander or the Grand Highlander, or possibly even the RAV4. I think the RAV4 technically has a little bit better leg room and room between the first and second rows here. But I think the 4Runner works just fine for space. But it is crazy to look at this car, and especially with all the other cars that have digital displays. Actually, we'll go ahead and hop up front, show you some of the buttons from that side. So you can see from up here, again, this is an ancient Toyota steering wheel. I have a 2014 FJ Cruiser, and minus the fact that I don't have any, of course, the modern conveniences of adaptive cruise and lane departure and, you know, blind spot and everything there. Our steering wheel in the FJ is almost identical to this. It has the same Bluetooth buttons, the same little adjustments here for the small display that's in between the gauges here, and pretty simple operation. Manual gauges for everything else. You can see there's fuel, temperature, RPMs, speed. Nothing really exciting or dramatic there. A lot of cars nowadays have digital dashboards. GR Corolla, the Highlander, the Grand Highlander, all these higher end cars, and not even just Toyota, you know, Fords and Hyundais and other cars for years now have had a screen there. But you know what's nice about not having a screen here? Nothing's gonna break. This screen right here has been used again for a long time. It's generally not known to have any issues with the touchscreen being a problem or anything like that. This is probably going to work for years to come. Everything else in this car, you know, there's no, you know, fancy chrome and metal and crazy all this stuff in here. It's plastic. There's plastic knobs here and there, and plastic buttons and plastic dashboard and fake carbon fiber put on plastic and all this stuff. However, this stuff will last forever. This shifter, you know, this has got, I believe, a 5-speed automatic transmission. There's no 8-speed, there's no dual clutch, there's no manuals, unfortunately, on the 4Runners anymore. The power window switches, they've pretty much been the same for eons now. This is the kind of thing that a lot of Toyotas were known for, is their simplicity in design, their simplicity in the build materials. And this right here, this setup, this 4Runner, is basically the building blocks for what has made Toyota so reliable and so popular over the years. So we don't exactly know what Toyota yet has planned for the 2025 4Runner. If they're following the same formula that they've done with the Tundra, the Sequoia, the Camry, the revision on the Camry coming out soon, and of course the new Tacoma, the Land Cruiser, which that's a whole other conversation. I am very curious to see what they do with this, because now that the Land Cruiser, the LC250, or Prado if you're overseas, is going to basically share a similar wheelbase and platform as the 4Runner behind me here, what are they going to do with the 4Runner? Because the Land Cruiser is going to price right there above where the top end 4Runners end up. I think the 4Runners end up on the high end around like $55,000 or $60,000 for fully loaded one. And I'm told the Land Cruisers are going to slot in on the base model around there. And I'm sure they'll go up to 65 or 70 for the fully equipped one. But now that they're going to potentially have two SUVs, that the 4Runner rarely gets the third row. The Land Cruiser's not going to have the third row, at least for North America. This still has the 4-liter V6, at least for the next year or so. The new Land Cruiser is going to have that turbo 4-cylinder with the hybrid setup, which is going to be a great, powerful engine. It's going to be interesting to see how these two compete, because we're going to have, at least for 1 year, we're going to have the old school Toyota for people that are like, I don't want to have all them computers and turbos and all that crap. And then we're going to have the just as capable, basically, more powerful, more economical Land Cruiser, and they're going to be both in the parking lot at the same time. So I'm really curious to see what happens with the 4Runner. Are they going to somehow sneak in an naturally aspirated V6 in there? I doubt it. It's probably going to be the same turbo 4-cylinder that they're using in everything nowadays. Are they going to have it with the hybrid option? Or are they going to do like the Tacoma where you've got it one way or the other? These are all questions we don't have right now, but I'm curious to see, honestly, what happens. I would really love, and part of the internet rumor mill has said that they might actually turn the 4Runner into a little bit more of a, I don't know if they're going to make it more like a Bronco competitor or like the old FJ where they might make it a glorified two-door. I don't think that would make sense for the 4Runner because they've never really had the heritage for that, minus the old ones. They had the 4Runner Sport, but I'm curious to see what happens. But more importantly, I want to ask you guys, what do you think? I mean, this is, again, the last year, the final hurrah for the V6 naturally aspirated body on frame, old school Toyota 4Runner. Are you excited to see what they do? Have you been waiting to buy the new 4Runner because you think this one's so dinosaur and old and crappy and outdated and terrible fuel economy and no technology and all that? Or are you going to miss it? Are you like me? Are you going to really look back and say, hey, in the future of turbos and hybrid and electrification and everything, these are going to be, I think, what everybody is looking for in the pre-owned market, much like they have with the FJs. Either way, I'd love to hear what you guys think, especially the underground color. I'd love to hear your comments on that. And more importantly, if there's any other videos you want me to cover about Toyota news, new Toyotas, pre-owned Toyotas, we've got it all here. I can even cover other cars as well. But as always, thanks for watching and have a great day. So as I'm parking this new underground 2024 4Runner, I happen to find that we still have a 2023 4Runner, which has the older magnetic gray. So you can actually see them here side by side. Here's the magnetic gray. As we come into it, this car's not really been washed. It's a little dirty, but you can still kind of see this little bit of flake in it versus the underground right next to it. From a distance, they're kind of hard to tell apart. When you look at them up close, they are very different. Let me know what you think. Underground or magnetic gray?